Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Financial Advisors Workshop. Our objective is to interview some of the top financial advisors in the country. And our team is able to find some really amazing people. And today we have one of those folks with us. It's John Olson. And John runs 2250 Financial Services. You are, John, where are you, actually? I thought I knew where you were. And what city are you in?
I'm in Millersville, Maryland, near Najoles.
Oh, okay. I should have known by the 410 area code. That's right. Okay. Well, welcome, John.
Thank you.
Financial Advisors Workshop.
Thank you.
And John, we had a discussion about your life and your practice. Where does the name 2250 come from? 2250 Financial Advisors.
So my father was born February 22nd, 1950. And when I named the company, I wanted to name it after him because he had passed away in 2012, but he had the same name as I did. So naming it John Olson Financial Advising would be nothing special. So I decided to go 2250. And now every time someone asks, I get to tell his story.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And so your dad was a big towering figure in your life.
Yeah, he was. He really lived with integrity, which is something is a goal in my own life, personally and professionally. And so it kind of, it meant something to me personally, but it also speaks to how I try to operate professionally.
Excellent. Well, and then you took some of those great ideas and training, and then went into the military, and you were a military officer as a way of background. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I served in the submarine force.
Right.
So I went to the Naval Academy, and I served on the USS Connecticut for 3 years. And, it was a fast attack boat. So we just, we jokingly call it poking holes in the water. We spent our time driving around the world, doing various missions. And it was great training. We got to learn nuclear engineering and submarine warfare. As an officer, you have to kind of do your best to combine all those skills to lead the submarine crew. And it was a really educational experience. I'm very proud of my service. But for me, in the long run, I only did 7 years. The goal, and I moved on to civilian.
May I have your attention, please?
Yes, and someone's being paged here. Sorry about that, John.
That's all right.
So that's really great. But that's really, the foundation of your family and foundation of the military has led you to a position of more than just being a 60-40 portfolio guy. You're
yes.
You're much more than that. And so as you founded 2250 Financial Advisors, did you start there, or did you start somewhere else and then begin this firm, or do you start it right away?
So I started at a broker dealer where I was actually for 10 years. And I got a lot of great training there and met a lot of great mentors. And then about 10 years in, it became obvious to me that for my own personal professional growth, it was worth going independent. So I joined up with Commonwealth, and then I had 2250 Financial Services, but only operated in the background. And now I get to be 2250 Financial to the world as an independent advisor.
Nice. That's great. So now you have the freedom to do the things that you want to do, and the obligation to do the right thing.
Yes, very much.
As well. Yes. So tell us a little bit about 2250 Financial Advisors. How large are you? What do you guys do? Just give us some background.
Sure. So right now it's myself, and I have a younger advisor who's in the industry about a year, and she's training with me. And the idea being that she can be a servicing advisor. So it's just the two of us and an admin assistant. Idea being, I've been kicking around the idea, what do I want for growth? Do I want it to be just organic? I am in the middle of an acquisition, so I'll be adding a retiring advisor's book of business here in about a year. And she's wonderful. She's going to stick around for a couple of years after she officially transfers the business. And so that's kind of my current trajectory. Long term, do I really want to be a firm of 30 advisors or 100 advisors, or, do I really want to be 2 or 3? I don't really know. I'm kind of seeing where the world takes me. I'm a faithful person. So, balancing that with my family as well, because, if you turn into CEO, that's less family time. So
absolutely.
But that's kind of where I am now. Yeah.
But you do have the freedom. The nice thing is that you work for yourself. So if you could ever balance it, this is a better opportunity than maybe at a wirehouse or independent
absolutely.
PD. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good. So how do you manage clients at 2250? Financial planning and different portfolios. Let's talk about those aspects. Yeah.
So I'm a CFP first. So everything I do involves a financial plan, maybe to my detriment. I don't, it is a rare occasion where a client comes in and gets to open an IRA within a meeting or two. I really like the purposeful, iterative process of financial planning. I think it's good for the client. It's good for the business. It builds trust. It allows me as an advisor to get to know the client and the client to get to know me. I always tell every client when they're interviewing me that they should hire somebody with whom they think they can build trust. And that should be their major deciding factor, because there will come a time in our relationship when I'm going to give them advice they may not want to hear. And if we have that trust, they're at least going to be open to it and hear me out. They may say no, but they're at least going to consider it. And so that's kind of in 30 seconds, that's basically my pitch to clients is I want to be your trusted advisor and guide you through whatever life throws at you, whether you're 20 or 80, and, go from there. So that's kind of how we do it. It's a very purposeful financial planning process. And then, I do the investment management, insurance, help them save money in an emergency account or analyze their workplace benefits, things like that. All the stuff that I would consider part of financial planning.
The full relationship.
Yes.
Great. So how do you do the planning? Do you use any of the systems out there, or do you do your own planning?
I use Right Capital right now. I really like them. They've got a great relationship with Commonwealth. And they're always adding new capabilities. So it's really, there's been a couple times in the past 2 years I've given them feedback, and I've actually seen them making a software change as a result. So it's been a good tool, and I find the output very understandable by the client. It's not in financial speak and jargon. It's something that can be visually understood and read, and clients can grasp it without necessarily being fully educated like we are as advisors.
And John, how often do you review the plan? I mean, you make the plan, but then do you look at it often? Periodically?
So my promise, I don't force any clients, but I really try to see clients at least once a year, if not more. And we'll review kind of, where they are, updates. And, sometimes that necessitates bringing out the actual plan. Sometimes it's a little simpler than that, but I feel like that annual, at least minimum check-in is necessary to kind of keep up with life. Sometimes it's like you go to your doctor, you go to your doctor and they say, hey, you're healthy, see you next year. And that's it. Other times there's, issues to figure out.
Right. Exactly. But you do. So you don't bury the plan. You review it and track it and make sure that they good. And that's a big mistake many advisors make. They don't focus on the plan. The plan's the key. You don't.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Great. Well, good. And then as far as money management, are you a money manager as well, or do you use third-party managers? Or?
So I use third-party. Commonwealth has a great program, but I also run my own portfolios.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed that very much. I was not able to do that at my old broker-dealer.
Okay.
That's been a fun addition to the workload. Long-term, I don't know if I'm going to always do it. It does take time, and, I want to give it its due course. So depending on how my growth goes, I may eventually switch to only third-party managers. Or I've kicked around the idea of hiring a kind of a chief investment officer at some point if I grow big enough, and kind of just be the authority for the firm, but let that person take the reins. So we'll see where it goes. But for now, I do manage my own portfolios, and that's where most of my clients' money is.
Okay, so you run most of the client money.
Yes.
So tell us about your management style. Are you a relative strength guy, a book value guy? What do you do?
I would say I'm a traditionalist.
Okay.
I have the 100%, 80-20, 60-40 portfolios. I believe in a mix of active and passive investing. I like the idea that in the passive is cheaper and you can take the ride for almost free, but then the active managers are there to kind of hopefully do better than the index over time. I'm not a day trader. I use mostly mutual funds and ETFs.
Okay.
And it's very long-term focused. So the way I measure my investments success is on the 10-year numbers. Okay. I'll monitor the 3-month, 6-month, 1-year numbers, and that may lead to me firing a mutual fund here or there, but I give them a little bit of leeway because everyone's going to have a bad quarter or a bad half a year. So, but again, I consider it kind of the boring approach. Right. I don't use alts or REITs or anything like that. It really is kind of bread and butter, just buy and hold sort of strategy.
Okay. Do you do any individual stocks at all, or is it still mostly funds, ETFs? Mostly funds and
ETFs. I do have a few, but it's mostly at client request. So I'll give you an example. I have one client who has 5 grandchildren, and they said, we want to buy a stock with each grandkid's personality in mind. And that's great. So we set that up, and it was amusing to watch kind of how it panned out over time, because one of them shot through the roof and another just lagged. And we had to rebalance the grandkids, so to speak. But that's kind of where it is. Or if someone's got company stock from a job and they want to hold on to it, I'll do that sort of thing. But I'm not actively calling clients and saying, hey, I got a new hot IPO and I think you should get into it. I don't do anything like that.
So John, if you don't do individual stocks, is it maybe it doesn't really matter? I mean, the ETFs can give the same kind of returns. It's like, why bother with all that, right?
Yeah, I guess if you were to talk to an expert or a Wall Street trader, they could probably give you a case where individual makes a difference. But we're probably talking, in the tens of basis points at best over a long investment cycle.
Right.
And I figure for the effort, why bother when that effort could go to things like tax efficient planning or insurance portfolio planning and things that are going to have a bigger alpha for the client than getting them 20 extra basis points because I picked the right stocks.
Right. That's great. That's great. Well, good. So how often do you meet with folks? Is it quarterly reviews, semi-annual, yearly?
Minimum annually. I will see them more often as life necessitates. Okay. So usually at the end of every meeting, I'll ask them, I'll say, what's coming up over the next 6 months or a year? Is there any reason we should meet at a certain time? Are you getting married, changing jobs? I try to link the meetings outside of at least once annually to life events, rather than just a rote every quarter sort of thing.
Right. Well, but and are you in touch with them regularly as well, other than just the reviews?
Yeah, we have marketing things, or I write articles and send them out, or this year we've been through. I'll send out notes like, we know the market's down, but keep your spirits up, sort of things. Here's some analysis to consider of why we're not, the whole world's not going to to nothing. I try to keep up with timely commentary as well as personalized touches.
That's great. So you talk to them, and I bet you've talked to them this year. We've had the worst stock market in the first half since 1970, and then the worst bond market ever with the 20 year down 20%, and the Barclays Ag down 12%. And we've never seen a bond market. Usually bonds go up, right, when stocks go down. So what's going on here? So how has that worked with your client base? Have you had anybody jumping off the ledge? Or
I've had concerns, but no one who's actually gone to cash or.
Okay.
I think a little bit of that is just client training. Especially when people are first investing, is explaining that a 20% drop in the market is normal every 18 to 24 months. it's not fun, but it's normal. And we
Right.
got spoiled from, March 9th, 2009 through 2020. That is an anomaly. And I think it's just allowing people to understand that volatility is not necessarily always risk.
Right.
And letting them, not using jargon to explain it. I think, generally speaking, I'll have people call me up and say things like, I know what you're going to tell me, but I want you to tell me anyway. So they already know what I'm going to say, which is, I consider, a good thing. But yeah, I haven't had anyone, and I think it goes back to as well is with each client, if you individualize their portfolio to their goals and risk tolerance, when this happens, you already know they're not going to touch the money for 10 years or 2 years or whatever their goals were. So when it happens, it's just kind of watching it happen on paper as opposed to it affecting their lifestyle.
Right, right. Well, that's great. So it's really the training and background and the personalized planning that keeps people from jumping off the cliff in a market like this, right? Yeah.
And I think as a business, if you are primarily a financial planner, when something happens bad in the investment world, your focus has always been financial planning. If all you do is sell investments, they're going to measure you by investments.
Right. That's a great, yes, absolutely. Well, now that we've seen this horrible market in the sloppy summer, what do you see ahead here, John, and the challenges ahead? What do you think is going to happen?
I wish I had a crystal ball, but I mean, I really do believe in good old American ingenuity, and it doesn't mean we don't have rough spots, but I mean, is this going to be another year of high inflation or what? I don't know. I do think the election is going to matter in the sense that markets don't like uncertainty. And right now we just don't know what we're going to have in 2023 and 2024 as far as Washington, D.C. goes. So I think once that's over, I think there's going to be one piece of uncertainty removed from the Wall Street equation. And we're still going to have the Federal Reserve and see what they do. But, I listen to all the pundits just like everybody else. And I want to believe that sometime mid next year, this all comes down, but I'm prepared for that not to happen. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. So, and, when you do reviews with clients, obviously the financial plans work fine when the markets are going up because you're gaining ground and everything. So do you agree that if the plans were going to fail, this would be the report that it would fail on? Like this right
absolutely,
now?
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. I actually, you can make capital market assumptions in all the planning softwares. I actually revised mine down a few months back for my long-term assumptions because I'd rather be too conservative than too aggressive because it's going to lead, hopefully, the shortfalls the plan identifies are going to lead to actions. And so if that helps client maybe invest a little more than they would have otherwise, control what we can control sort of thing. That's the idea there. And I think this year has, again, my career has mostly been, I started in 2010. So I've seen, academically, I've studied things and I've seen a few bad quarters, but this is relatively, uncommon in the last 15 years. So
yes.
I think it's helped me revise my assumptions down a bit.
So you started in 2010. So you were what we would call a bull market baby.
Yes, very much so.
So good for you. And do you know of other colleagues with your same tenure who are struggling through this? And what advice would you give them right now in their career?
Kind of alluding to what I said earlier, I think if you focus on financial planning and not just investment management, you'll be a better financial advisor. And when this happens, you'll be prepared for it because you'll have set the clients up properly to weather the storm individually.
Yes.
And so I think financial planning is kind of, in my book, the answer to everything. If you can, and I don't think you need to have a designation necessarily, but just doing the process will lead you to better results because you're doing right by the client, and the inputs are what matter. And if the inputs are the clients, then you'll get the right results for them with the output.
Nice. So I'm hearing that you're going to grow and you're working on a possible acquisition. And tell us a little bit about that.
So when I left my old BD, I had a non-compete, which I honored, of course. And I had clients follow, but my overall AUM got cut about 50-60% when all was said and done. And so I had time on my hands.
Exactly.
So I started thinking about how I could grow, and I'll continue to grow organically. I've never actually gotten more referrals than this switch. After the switch, clients have been very generous with the referrals. Nice. But I organically met some retiring advisor at Commonwealth who was looking for a good succession plan. And I kind of went into it. I wanted to figure out what I wanted out of an acquisition. And I decided ultimately I wanted to succeed an advisor who genuinely wanted their clients to be in good hands, as opposed to just getting a check and running for the hills.
Right.
Because you can do that. There are lots of bigger firms out there that'll easily stroke you a couple $1 million and you can just run away and be done.
Right.
But I really wanted someone who, so we wrote out a very purposeful 2-year transition process.
Great.
For me to meet the clients, understand her business, combine our businesses in a way that was fair to my clients and her clients. And then she's going to stick around for 2 years. And then, we'll go from there. And we're going to ideally sign the legal stuff in about 4 months. And then we'll just have a year to build out the actual transition. So nice. That's where it is. And it'll about double my size. And then that's one of the reasons I have this younger advisor, is to help me handle the workload of the new book. Yeah.
Awesome. So we did talk earlier about, advisors and how they operate. And we're under the fiduciary standard in the advisor space, right? Yep. And there is the regulation and the letter of the regulation and what you need to do to comply. Yes. And then there's also the spirit of the regulation. Let's talk a little bit about that. I think you expressed to me that a big part of your code is a very highly ethical approach.
Yes. I really believe, and I tell everyone who will listen, that integrity is the only thing in this world that can't be taken from us. We have to give it away.
Right.
So personally and professionally, I try to apply that standard. And, Reg BI, fiduciary standard, depending on your license or designation, all that stuff's wonderful. And I really liked about 10 years ago when they philosophically brought up the idea of making everyone a fiduciary, but it turned out to be bad execution. And then they figured out a way to make it better. And now we have Reg BI. But I think if you adhere to the letter of the law, that's important. But there's the legal plane of meeting the standard, and then there's the ethical plane. And if we all operate on the ethical plane, as long as we write the notes properly, we're going to be fine.
Right.
If you treat everyone like it's your mom or your dad, and you're helping them out with their financial plans or investments, then I think all in all, you will end up to be more successful. You may not make every sale or anything like that, but in the long run, clients will want to work with you. They'll trust you, and you'll get better referrals, and it'll lead to better business, as well as meeting the letter of the law and, passing your company's compliance inspections and all that stuff too. But I just think it's the right thing to do. And usually the right thing to do means that you'll end up in a better place, even when it's harder to do the right thing.
Yes. So tell us about one time that you can remember when, not naming names or anything like that, but yes, when you had to tell a client something very hard that really could have hurt your business if the client went against you.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I had an opportunity once, a client who we were looking at using life insurance as a retirement tool. And so they ultimately ended up getting the life insurance, but it was a higher premium because it was, we're trying to overfund something. And
Right.
I had a wholesaler propose the idea of using an annuity to leverage up your dollars and then use the annuity payout to fund the life insurance. Mm-hmm. And on paper, I thought that's an interesting idea. I think that's, really good. And then I looked at the commission payout of it, and it was basically doubling up on the commission for the same client dollar. And so I did propose the idea to the client because there's value in it, right? I mean, if you want 100 grand out of the annuity, you only got to put in 90, you're leveraging up sort of thing. And now you got 100K, you can put in the insurance policy, whatever. And so I told him, I said, here's the concept. And, ultimately this is where we want to get with the insurance. And I explained though, I said, internally, I'm a little torn because this is two products where they're commissionable. And, to me, that's just, I want to explain that to you. So if you end up going down this path, you understand how that works. And I think I probably turned the client off of the strategy by saying that. But in the end, I don't know that I would have been comfortable if they said yes. I believe we had a level of trust where if I had said this is a good idea, they would have done it.
Right.
But I really like doing the pro and con thing of a product or a strategy, explaining what they're paying and allowing them to make the choice. I think that is one way to mitigate the conflict of interest we inherently have as business people. Is just let them make the choice with all the information, and you're, like I said, you win some, you lose some, but you're gonna be able to sleep at night. So that was the first example that came to mind.
Great. Well, then that's what it means to be a fiduciary, that you do the right thing for the client. And you could have made more money by offering that product, but you did the right thing. And all that commission would affect the client down the road, of course.
Absolutely.
So let's just hit that up front. That's great. Well, that's a great example. And John, you've really given us a good roadmap on how you run the business and your background, the military background, your father. It's just a great base for a great life and a great practice. And today we're talking to about 300 financial advisors that'll see this in about the next 2 weeks, once it's out.
Okay.
And then over the next year, a few thousand. So imagine you're in an auditorium and all those people are together in one room, right? And you're on stage. Yes. And this is your stage, okay? Is there any other message you'd like to give that crowd of people today, as if you were in that room?
I guess it would be that, it's understanding your story. I tell my story to every client, what got me into the business, because it really colors how I look at financial planning. Mm-hmm. And so I'll share that here. I got into it because I was a client of a financial advisor. And when I got engaged, I brought my then fiance in to do a financial plan. And we set everything up. And then we got married in 2009. And about 2 weeks after we got married, my wife, who is now just fine, ended up on her deathbed. Ooh. She got swine flu and went through a medically induced coma like a lot of folks have experienced with COVID. Now, we were lucky and blessed, and she made it out and she's fine. But I remember one night in the hospital, her parents came to me and they said, we know this is going to be expensive, we'll help. And I remember immediately saying, financially, we're fine. We had reviewed our health insurance. We had the right emergency savings. We had the right amount of life insurance for that time in our life. So we were covered for the financial risks her being sick posed. Obviously, emotionally, I was a wreck. But financially, we were good. And usually when someone gets sick, you're worried about two things. One, are they going to be okay? And two, can I afford this?
Right.
And not having to worry about affording it was an enormous weight off my shoulders.
Yep.
And that's what turned into me being a financial advisor. Is I immediately started looking around for a different career field that was more fulfilling to me, where I could be of service. And I think if we, as financial advisors or planners or investment managers or insurance salesmen, whatever it is, if we look at this as a service industry, and I'm a Christian person, so I approach it from that angle. But if we look at it as a service, and we're always trying to do the best by our client, that will lead to our and our clients' success. And I share that story because that is always what's in the back of my mind is, I think where we really become valuable. It's fun to talk about investing. It's kind of the hot topic every client wants to discuss. But where we really provide value is when life throws a curveball at somebody, we can be there to advise them on the most efficient or fruitful way to get through that. Or if you're planning for something like a 30-year retirement or sending your kids to college. And I think having that drive within you as an advisor is what will make the difference in your client's success. And if not everyone has to have a sad story, but something that keeps you going when you're sitting there doing transfer paperwork, and it's the most boring thing in the world. And that paperwork means something in a client's life if you can just kind of keep that in the background.
Nice. It's great, John. You're a great inspiration.
Thank you.
You got a great ethics. We really appreciate your spending time with us. John Olson, submarine officer, CFP, and CEO of 2250 Financial Advisors. So, thanks for spending some time with us today, John.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity.
And everybody, thanks for being with us today again on the Financial Advisors Workshop. We'll be back with another interview with another great person like John in our industry to showcase the best people. We have great people in this industry, and we just want everyone to know who they are. And thanks again, John.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.